By the time the royal breakfast began, Queen Alara already knew something was wrong with the twins. Rowan usually reached for the first bowl placed before him, while Rhys preferred to steal pieces from his brother's plate when no one was looking. This morning, neither boy touched his food. Rowan sat rigidly in his chair, watching the doorway. Rhys kept twisting in his seat, his small hands gripping the edge of the table. Alara followed their gaze. A senior court official had just entered the room. The moment he crossed the threshold, Rowan went silent. Rhys began to whimper. "What is it?" Alara asked softly. The boys did not answer, of course. They were too young to explain what they sensed, but Alara had learned to pay attention to what they could not say. The official continued toward the table, offering the Alpha King a respectful bow. Kale acknowledged him without suspicion. He looked tired. He had spent another restless night listening for every sound from the nursery, and Alara knew he had learned the same exhausting lesson she had. When the twins became upset, forcing them to calm down only made everything worse. "They are probably overtired," Kale said. Alara looked at Rowan. The boy was no longer watching the official. He was staring toward the far side of the family wing, where a narrow corridor disappeared behind an old wooden door. Rhys followed his brother's gaze. Both boys became still. "No," Alara said quietly. "Something is different." Kale's eyes moved to her. "You think someone frightened them?" "I think they are trying to tell us something." The words made the room feel suddenly smaller. Kale's expression tightened. He trusted Alara with the children, but she could see the old fear behind his eyes, the fear that had never completely left him since becoming a father. Losing the twins was the one thought powerful enough to make even the Alpha King uncertain. Alara reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. "I am not accusing anyone," she said. "I want to understand what they are reacting to before someone else decides for them." Kale studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Investigate quietly." His voice lowered. "No counsel, no announcements, only the people you trust." Alara accepted the restriction. It was enough. Throughout the morning, she watched the twins carefully. Every time the senior official approached, they became uneasy. Every time his footsteps faded, they relaxed. But neither boy stopped watching the old corridor. By evening, the palace had quieted. Alara returned to the family wing expecting to find the twins asleep. Instead, Rowan was standing beside his bed, staring at her. He lifted one small hand and pointed toward the door. Alara crouched beside him. "You want me to follow you?" Rowan nodded. Rhys climbed down beside him. Together, the twins slipped into the corridor. Alara followed, her uneasiness growing with every silent step. They stopped before the old wooden door. Rowan placed his palm against it. Rhys looked back at her. For the first time, Alara understood that they had not brought her there by accident. They were showing her something. Alara placed her hand over Rowan's small fingers and gently pushed the old door open. It resisted at first, as though it had not been used in years, then gave way with a soft groan. Beyond it was a narrow passage leading deeper into the family wing. The twins moved forward together, no longer frightened. That alone made Alara uneasy. Whatever they expected to find, it did not frighten them. She followed closely, keeping one hand near Rhys as the boys walked toward a quiet alcove where the walls were lined with old wooden panels. Rowan stopped at one panel and tapped it twice. Rhys immediately copied him. Alara crouched beside them. "This one," she whispered. Rowan nodded. She examined the panel. There was nothing remarkable about it at first glance, only dark wood carved with faded royal patterns. But when Rowan pressed his palm against one corner, the panel shifted slightly. Alara caught the edge and pulled. A narrow compartment opened behind it. Inside lay a small silver token. She lifted it carefully. The old royal crest was engraved across its surface, but it was not the crest used by the current royal household. The design was older, simpler, belonging to a previous generation of the family. The twins changed the moment they saw it. Rhys reached toward the token, while Rowan leaned closer without any sign of fear. Alara lowered it between them. Both boys became completely calm. She studied their faces, then the object in her hand. "You know this," she whispered. Neither child could explain how, yet their reaction was unmistakable. Alara carried the token back to the king's private study before anyone else could see it. Kale was standing over a table covered with council reports when she entered. He looked up, ready to ask what she had found, but the question died when he saw the silver token in her palm. His expression changed immediately. "Where did you get that?" Alara told him. For several seconds, Kale said nothing. Then he reached toward the token without touching it. That belonged to their mother. Alara's eyes narrowed. "You knew it existed?" "I knew it existed." His voice was quiet. "I was told it was destroyed after she disappeared." Alara looked down at the old crest again. The contradiction was too clear to ignore. If the token had been destroyed, it could not have been hidden inside the family wing. And if someone had hidden it there, someone had known enough about the family to place it where the twins could eventually find it. "We should call the council," Kale said. Alara immediately shook her head. "Not yet." He looked at her sharply. "Why?" "Because we don't know who altered the records, or who knew the token was supposed to be gone." She placed it carefully on the table. "If someone inside the council is involved, announcing that we found this will only give them time to remove whatever else remains." Kale's jaw tightened. He hated the uncertainty, but he knew she was right. Alara considered the possibilities. Then an idea formed. "Let us put it back." Kale frowned. "And pretend we never found it." "Not exactly." She met his eyes. "We return it to the family wing and watch what happens." For the first time that evening, something close to agreement appeared in his expression. Quietly, Alara promised. The next morning, she returned the token to its compartment and watched from a distance as the palace resumed its normal rhythm. Hours passed without anything unusual. Then she entered the restricted archive and requested the official record concerning the token. The archivist brought her the document. Alara read the entry once, then again. The record stated that the Silver family token had been destroyed years ago. Beneath the declaration was a signature authorizing its destruction. Alara stared at the name. The royal archivist who had supposedly signed the order had died before the twins were even born. Alara did not touch the document again. She simply stared at the signature until the unease in her chest became certainty that something was wrong. An archivist who had died before the twins were born could not have personally signed a record concerning an object whose destruction was now being used as an official fact. She carefully returned the document to its place and left the archive without mentioning what she had found. By the time she reached the family wing, her decision was already made. She would not search blindly. She would make someone show her where the truth was hidden. That afternoon, Alara called only 3 people she trusted into a private room. Kale stood beside her while she explained what they had discovered, but she did not tell them everything. She wanted the circle small. Then she gave them the next piece of information. A false report claiming that a second family document had been found, one that suggested a hidden branch of the royal bloodline still possessed a claim to the succession. The document did not exist. The report did. Alara ordered it placed inside a restricted section of the royal archive where only senior succession officials had legitimate access. Kale watched her closely. "You are baiting whoever altered the records." "I am giving them a reason to reveal themselves," Alara replied. "If they are concerned about succession, they cannot ignore something that might threaten their position." Kale's expression hardened. "And if they come for it? Then we will know they were watching the archive." He did not like the answer, but he understood the logic. The twins remained under Alara's direct supervision while the test unfolded. She refused to let their routines change more than necessary. They ate, played, slept, and moved through the palace as they always had. Only the adults around them knew that every ordinary moment was now part of a dangerous investigation. The palace did not remain quiet for long. Lord Garrick, one of the senior members of the Royal Council, confronted Alara in the family wing. He was controlled and respectful, but his words carried an unmistakable challenge. "Your Majesty, the heir's behavior cannot dictate matters of state." Alara met his gaze without reacting. "I agree." Garrick seemed almost surprised. "Then perhaps you will stop allowing their preferences to interfere with the royal household." Alara let the silence stretch. She could have argued. Instead, she lowered her eyes slightly and allowed him to believe he had made his point. "Perhaps you are right," she said. Garrick left soon afterward. Kale waited until the door closed. "You let him think he won." Alara nodded. That was the point. She knew the next step mattered more than the confrontation. If Garrick was merely arrogant, nothing would happen. If he was connected to the hidden problem, the false report would be impossible for him to ignore. That night, Alara returned to the restricted archive with Kale. The palace was quiet. The false document remained where she had ordered it placed. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Then Kale noticed something. The archive door was not fully closed. Alera's eyes narrowed. They moved silently inside. The false report was gone. No alarm had sounded. No guard had reported an intruder. Someone with access, knowledge, and confidence had entered the archive and taken the bait. On the empty table where the document had been, one object remained, a royal signet. Alera did not recognize the signet as belonging to Lord Garrick, but she recognized the crest engraved upon it. It belonged to Lady Seraphine's household. The discovery did not prove that Seraphine herself had entered the archive, and Alera refused to make that leap. A signet could be borrowed, stolen, copied, or carried by someone acting without its owner's knowledge. If she wanted the truth, she needed more than suspicion. She needed the history behind the records. The following morning, Alera began looking into the final months before the twins' mother disappeared. She started with the palace archives, comparing old requests, family correspondence, and succession documents. The pattern emerged slowly. Shortly before her disappearance, the twins' mother had requested access to the oldest succession records. The request had been denied. There was no explanation attached to it. Alera read the denial twice before taking it to Cale. He stared at the page in silence. She asked about the succession, he finally said. Yes. He lowered himself into a chair, his expression tightening as memories returned. She asked me once whether I trusted the council. Alera waited. I thought she was afraid. Cale continued. She had just given birth. Everything had changed. I told her there was nothing to fear. His voice became quieter. I never asked what had frightened her. Alera placed a hand against his shoulder. For the first time, Cale did not try to hide how much the memory hurt. They continued searching. Another discrepancy appeared in the twins' official birth record. The document had been amended 3 separate times. Each amendment carried the proper royal seal, yet none contained a clear explanation for why the original entry had been changed. 3 alterations. 3 unexplained decisions. Alera felt the pieces beginning to connect, but she still refused to decide what they meant. The truth had to survive scrutiny. That evening, she brought the silver token into a private family room and placed it on the table. The twins were playing nearby. Rowan noticed it first. He stopped and stared. Rhys followed his brother's gaze. Rowan walked toward the token and reached for it. Rhys pointed toward the old succession ledger lying beside it. Alera watched carefully. Neither child had been told what the objects meant, yet their reactions were immediate. Rowan touched the silver token. Rhys touched the ledger. Then both boys looked at Alera. Her breath caught. The twins' mother had not simply left behind a mysterious heirloom. She may have been trying to preserve something the children would one day be able to recognize. Cale, Alera said quietly. He came to stand beside her. What is it? I think their mother was looking for something before she disappeared. Cale looked at the ledger. Something connected to them. Alera nodded. She opened the old register carefully. Between 2 faded entries, nearly hidden beneath the binding, was a handwritten message in the margin. The ink was old. The handwriting was unfamiliar. Alera leaned closer and read the words once. Then she read them again. Trust neither the seal nor the bloodline as written. Cale went completely still beside her. Alera closed the ledger without another word. The message did not tell them who had altered the records. It did not explain why the twins reacted to the family objects. But it changed the question. They were no longer asking whether something had been hidden from the royal family. They were asking what had been changed, and who had needed the truth to remain buried. For several seconds, neither Alera nor Cale spoke. The message remained between them like a door they had not yet decided whether to open. Alera looked at the twins again. Rowan had returned to his game, but Rhys still watched the silver token from across the room. We need to test something, Alera said. Cale's gaze shifted to her. What? The objects. She pointed toward the token and the old ledger. If their reactions are connected to their family, then they should respond differently to objects that truly belong to that family and objects that do not. Cale hesitated. You want to use the children as evidence? No, Alera said firmly. I want to observe them without turning them into tools. They will never be placed in danger, and we will never force a reaction. If they show us something naturally, we listen. Cale studied her, then nodded. Over the next day, Alera quietly gathered several old family objects from the palace stores. Some were ordinary royal heirlooms. Others had belonged to earlier members of the royal household. She placed them one at a time where the twins could see them, never telling them what each object was supposed to mean. The results were inconsistent at first. Rowan ignored a jeweled ceremonial piece that had belonged to a recent king. Rhys played with an old wooden box and quickly lost interest. Neither reacted to a silver cup that had been kept in the royal treasury for decades. Then Alara placed the old family token on the table. Both boys stopped. Rowan approached first. Rhys followed immediately. Their attention became focused and unmistakable. Alara exchanged a look with Kale. She repeated the test with another object from the previous generation. Again, the twins became attentive. A third object produced the same response. But ordinary royal heirlooms produced nothing. A pattern was forming. The twins were not responding to wealth, ceremony, or royal importance. They were responding to something specific within their family's history. Kale looked troubled. Could someone have taught them this? They are too young, Alara answered. And no one has been told what we are testing. Kale looked toward his sons. Then what does it mean? Alara did not answer immediately. She was thinking about the altered birth records, the vanished token, the message in the old register, and the twins' reaction to objects that should have meant nothing to them. It means their behavior may be telling us which parts of their family history are real. Kale's expression hardened. And which parts are not? Alara nodded. The implication frightened them both. If the twins could somehow recognize authentic family objects, then the altered records might not be the only false thing inside the palace. The next morning, the council announced that the succession ceremony would take place in 3 days. The news changed everything. Until then, Alara had believed they had time to investigate carefully. Now the deadline was fixed. The twins would soon be presented publicly as heirs before the entire court. If someone had altered their records, that person had every reason to act before the ceremony. Kale read the announcement twice. We can postpone it. Alara shook her head. If we delay, whoever is responsible will know we found something. He looked at her. Then what do you suggest? Alara looked toward the twins, who were quietly playing beside. The old family token. We let the ceremony happen. Her voice was calm, but her mind was already moving several steps ahead. And before it does, we find out exactly what someone was so desperate to erase. Alara did not sleep that night. The announcement of the succession ceremony had changed the shape of the danger, but it had also given her something she needed, a deadline the conspirators could not ignore. If someone had altered the twins' records, that person could not allow a disputed claim to surface before the court gathered. Alara spent the morning reviewing every piece of information they had collected. The altered birth records, the vanished silver token, the impossible destruction order, the message hidden in the old register, the twins' reactions to authentic family objects. None of it was enough to expose anyone. They needed the enemy to make another move. I have a plan, Alara told Kale that afternoon. He looked at her with immediate suspicion. That expression usually means I am not going to like it. Despite everything, the corner of her mouth lifted. Probably not. She explained the next step. In front of the court, she would announce that she and Kale had disagreed over the succession ceremony. She would make it appear that she wanted the twins removed from the public event because she no longer trusted the palace security. More importantly, she would allow the court to believe that Kale had rejected her concerns. The argument had to look real. If the people watching them believed the queen had lost the king's confidence, they would assume her authority over the twins had weakened. Kale listened without interrupting. You want them to think you are isolated. I want them to think I am the easiest person to pressure. His expression darkened. You understand what that could cost you. Yes. She did. Her reputation, her position, the trust she had built with the court, perhaps even her place beside him. But the twins could not be protected by pretending the palace was safe. Kale looked toward the adjoining room, where Rowan and Rhys were playing quietly. And where will they actually be? Somewhere no one expects. Alara did not reveal every detail aloud. The children would be moved discreetly to a protected royal residence, guarded only by people whose loyalty had already been tested. The court, however, would receive a different story. Alara would tell Lord Garrick herself that she intended to remove the twins because she feared for their safety. She knew he would listen. She knew someone else would hear. By evening, the first part of the plan was in motion. Alara appeared before the council and allowed the disagreement to unfold exactly as intended. Her voice remained controlled, but she did not hide her frustration. Kale appeared equally firm. To anyone watching, they looked divided. Whispers began almost immediately. Some questioned whether the queen had become too protective. Others suggested that she had overstepped her authority. Alara heard every word and gave none of them an answer. Later, she found Lord Garrick alone in the corridor. "The twins will not attend the ceremony unless I am certain they are safe," she told him. Garrick studied her face. "His Majesty disagrees?" Alara looked away deliberately. For now, she walked away before he could ask more. Behind her, she could feel his attention following. That was enough. The bait had been placed. The twins were already safe. The palace believed they were vulnerable. Now Alara only had to wait and see who moved first. Before midnight, a sealed message reached her. The false schedule had been leaked. Someone had taken the bait. The attack came before dawn. Alara was still in the protected residence when a trusted guard entered the room with a face that told her everything before he spoke. They found the location. Her pulse remained steady, but her stomach tightened. The false schedule had worked. Someone had moved against the place where the twins were supposed to be. Kale arrived moments later, his expression hard. "The men were stopped," he said. "No one reached the children." Alara exhaled slowly. Relief came first. Then came the more troubling detail. The attackers had carried weapons marked with the insignia of the king's own guard. "Then the palace is compromised," she said. Kale nodded grimly. "We cannot assume every guard is loyal." By sunrise, the court was already in turmoil. The attempted attack had not been made public in full, but rumors traveled faster than official statements. Lord Garrick used the confusion immediately. Before the council, he accused Alara of creating unnecessary instability around the heirs. "The queen has allowed fear to dictate royal policy," he declared. "Her interference has endangered the succession rather than protected it." Alara stood silently while the accusations continued. She could have defended herself. She could have revealed that the entire disagreement had been staged. Instead, she allowed Garrick to believe that she had been cornered. Then Lady Seraphine stepped forward. She carried a sealed document in both hands. "Your Majesty," she said to Kale, "there is another matter that cannot be ignored." She opened the document and presented it as evidence that Alara possessed no independent authority over the twins beyond what the king had formally granted her. The chamber became silent. Every eye turned toward Alara. For one brief moment, she felt the weight of everything she had built pressing against her. Her position, her marriage, her place beside the children. Any defense she made now could expose the plan before it was complete. So she did something the council did not expect. She accepted the accusation. "If the court believes my authority has become a danger to the heirs," she said calmly, "then I will step away from their protection." Kale's eyes met hers. Anyone else might have mistaken his expression for anger. Alara knew better. He understood. Later, behind closed doors, she told him the truth. "You have to let them believe this." His jaw tightened. "They are trying to remove you. I know. And you want me to allow it? I want you to make them believe you have no choice." He stared at her for several seconds. "What are you planning?" Alara placed the original succession ledger on the table between them. She had kept it hidden since discovering the message in its margin. "They are not truly after me," she said. "They are after this." Kale looked down at the ledger. "Then why would they believe it is here?" "Because I want them to." The queen had deliberately allowed the court to think the twins were the immediate target. But the deeper threat was the evidence that could change how the succession was understood. If the conspirators believed the authentic record was vulnerable, they would have to move again. Alara ordered the ledger concealed inside the old family chamber, the same place where the twins had first found the silver token. Then she allowed the palace to believe she had been separated from the heirs. The trap was closing. That evening, footsteps sounded beyond the family chamber. Someone entered the hidden passage. Alara waited in the darkness, listening. The intruders moved toward the concealed record. Then a small sound came from behind her. She turned. Rowan stood in the passage. Rhys was beside him. The twins had found their way through a narrow opening Alara had never noticed before, and neither boy looked afraid. Rowan pointed deeper into the passage. Rhys reached for Alara's hand. She followed them. Alara followed the twins deeper into the passage, keeping one hand around Rhys's while Rowan moved ahead with surprising certainty. The sound of footsteps from the other side of the chamber grew fainter as the intruders searched for the hidden record. Then Rowan stopped beside a section of stone wall that looked no different from the rest. He placed both hands against it. Nothing happened. Reese reached toward a narrow groove near the floor. Alara crouched and pressed it gently. A quiet click sounded inside the wall. A section of stone shifted inward, revealing a small chamber beyond. Alara stared into the darkness. She had searched the family wing for days, yet she had never known this place existed. The twins stepped inside. Alara followed them and pulled the stone closed behind her. The chamber was barely large enough for the three of them. At its center stood an old wooden chest. The silver family token fit into a shallow recess on its lid. Alara understood immediately. The token had never been a keepsake. It had been a key. She inserted it carefully. The chest opened. Inside lay the original succession record, preserved beneath layers of protective cloth, and, beside it, a sealed letter bearing the twins' mother's name. Alara's hands trembled as she lifted the letter. She broke the seal and began to read. The first lines changed everything she thought she knew. The twins' mother had not simply abandoned her children. Before she disappeared, she had discovered that members of the royal court were altering succession records after the twins' birth. She had requested the original documents because the official version of their bloodline no longer matched the older family records. She had hidden the authentic record because she believed someone inside the palace was watching her. The letter explained why she had trusted this hidden chamber. One day, she believed, her children might recognize the family objects she had left behind. They would not understand the reason, but their instincts would lead the right person to the truth. Alara lowered the letter slowly. The twins stood beside her, watching. Their strange reactions finally made sense. They had not been responding to random objects. They had been recognizing traces of their true family history. Alara read the remaining pages. The hidden truth was larger than a simple alteration. A branch of the royal family had attempted to manipulate the succession after the twins were born, intending to weaken their legal position and gain control over the future of the kingdom. The evidence pointed toward people with access to royal records and family authority. Alara's thoughts immediately returned to the signet found in the archive. Lady Seraphine. The realization hurt because Seraphine had never appeared to be an enemy. She had stood beside the family through years of uncertainty. Yet the evidence was now too consistent to ignore. The twins' mother had known that someone close to the royal household was involved. She had hidden the truth rather than risk placing her children directly in the conspirators' path. Alara folded the letter and secured it with the original record. Outside the chamber, footsteps stopped. Someone was standing near the concealed entrance. Alara understood the final part of her gambit. The conspirators believed they had found the record. They believed the queen had been removed from the twins' protection. They believed they were finally in control. She could expose them now. But if she did, the people behind the operation might escape with only part of the evidence. Alara looked at Rowan and Reese. They were safe. That was what mattered. She chose the harder path. She would let the enemy believe they had won a little longer. She opened the hidden door and stepped into the passage with the authentic succession record concealed against her side. The moment she appeared, Seraphine was waiting. Her expression changed when she saw the record. "You found it," she whispered. Alara met her gaze calmly. "No," she said. "You did." Seraphine froze. Then voices echoed through the palace corridors. Kale had closed the gates. Loyal guards were already moving into position. Alara walked toward the council chamber with the twins safely behind her, the original record in her hands, and the queen's gambit finally ready to end. Seraphine followed Alara into the council chamber, still believing she could control what happened next. The room was filled with senior officials and guards, but the balance had already shifted. Kale stood at the head of the chamber, his expression unreadable. The doors behind him were sealed. "You have the original succession record," Seraphine said. Alara placed it on the table. "I do." Seraphine's eyes hardened. "Then you understand why it cannot be allowed to remain." The words were enough. Kale stepped forward. "Thank you for saying that aloud." Seraphine went still. Alara opened the record and placed it beside the altered copies. One by one, the evidence followed. The impossible destruction order, the amended birth records, the false document taken from the archive, and the signet recovered after the intrusion. The planted report had revealed who was watching the succession records, while the attack on the false location had proven that the conspiracy was willing to endanger the heirs. The final evidence came from the original letter written by the twins' mother. It established what had happened before her disappearance and why she had hidden the authentic record. Seraphine tried to defend herself, insisting that she had acted to preserve the kingdom's stability. But the explanation could not erase what she had done. She had altered the records and helped others manipulate the succession because she believed control mattered more than the twins' right to inherit. Kale ordered the conspirators removed from royal authority and the authentic succession record restored. The twins' legal position was secured. The official history of their mother was corrected as well. She had not abandoned her children willingly. She had tried to protect them from a threat inside their own family. Alara stood quietly as the chamber emptied. The victory felt strangely different from what she had imagined. She had not wanted power over the court. She had wanted the children safe. Kale came to stand beside her. You knew they would come for the record. Alara nodded. I knew they couldn't ignore it. He looked toward the twins, who were waiting near the doorway. You risked everything. For them. Kale reached for her hand. And if you had known what it would cost you? Alara looked at him. I would still have done it. His fingers closed around hers. Then I should have trusted you sooner. The twins ran toward them. Rowan reached for Alara, while Reese reached for Kale. Together they walked back toward the family wing. The old corridor was no longer locked. Its door stood open, and sunlight reached across the floor. Rowan ran through first, laughing. Reese followed. Alara looked back at the chamber where so many secrets had been hidden, then forward at the family waiting for her. The same passage that had once led them toward an unknown danger now led home. She took Kale's hand, and together they followed the twins through the open doorway.